So we see that these are the some of the four actually the four capacities, state capacity, which we are um, uh, that we are going to talk about in this class. And as I was mentioning about the in the last video about the coercive aspect of the state capacity, um, again, you could see that um, if you again want to go back to that flu example, uh, if you can't get um, legitimacy behind it, you might need to force people to do certain things for you. If you needed that flu vaccine for children, the flu example which I quoted earlier, and pharmaceutical company weren't doing it, the coercive capacity for doing that would be for the government to go in there and take over private companies and run the things for themselves, which maybe you might need to do during the war times. You might take over Ford to build tanks if Ford company wasn't willing to do it for yourself, right? If you didn't have the adequate steering capacity to produce those things on your own. So these are the four aspects of the state capacity. Again, they are not often quite. Again, they are more often quite interrelated. The steering is the goal. How well do you can steer is determined by how well you can extract the resources of the society, but also whether society feels these things are legitimate. So society does not, if the society does not feel these things are legitimate, um, then you better have the coercive capacity to force your society to do one thing or the other. And again, the state capacity is something which you can use to describe countries. Uh, Students in the past have written paper on state capacity, things such as disaster response, comparing the disaster responses of the developing countries like Bangladesh to disaster response of United States when a hurricane strikes. Sometimes you might find that US is lacking in capacity. Now, in closing, I want to mention one more thing, and that is when you got a state that has very low in capacity, can't really do anything, it is failing at guiding any kind of policy whatsoever, and lacking also in state sovereignty. You can't keep foreign influences out, then we probably reached a state which is known sometimes as being a failed state, a state that can't really govern or administer its territory effectively, such that outsiders might come in, influence the government, and that it cannot do what it needs to do, provide for socio-economic well-being of its people. So again, the state capacity can be high, and that's a good thing. But when state's capacity really drops very low, you can't protect your border, you can't provide law and order, you can't provide education, you can't provide public health because your water is full of cholera. At that point, you're really not acting very much like a state anymore, and we might be talking about something called state failure. So, that in closing is a state capacity, and it's useful to understand when you look at how countries are able to pass policies or fail to do so in certain context, and that's the uh, concept of state capacity in quick brief slide.